All right, welcome to the discussion session for Tuesday, November 11th, 2025. Let's see, item number 1 is Keith McGill will review the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight's agenda, we have the public hearing on the 2026 manager's recommended budget and the proposed tax rate for 2026. We have the public hearing amending the 2025 budget for revenue and expenditures not anticipated as part of that 2025 budget. We have the introduction of an ordinance concerning the municipality's 2026 budget, introduction of an ordinance fixing the tax rate for the year 2026, consideration for adoption of the concurring resolution for CDBG, Community Development Block Grant application for ADA sidewalk ramp upgrades. We do this every year through SHACOG. We have the consideration of an agreement by and between the Municipality of Mount Lebanon and the United Police Society of Mount Lebanon. It's a 4-year agreement, 2026 to 2029. Thank you to everyone that worked so hard to make that possible. And we also have the consideration of revisions to the sidewalk expansion policy. We talked about that a little bit last time and when we were going through the Woodland project. That's really the removal of some obsolete language that refers to the traffic board and the clarification of the resident cost sharing formula. That was all.
All right, so tonight we got a couple good discussions. One, AI and local government. We are joined by our IT manager, Nick Shallis, to chat about that. Let's do it.
How are you guys tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good. How are you doing? Feel like we just did this last night.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to do a little discussion on AI and the uses we are currently doing in the municipality, what we foresee doing with some of the new stuff coming out that everyone's jumping on, so we want to make sure that we do it safely and that we keep the public's trust, that we're not just going to be people behind spitting out stuff that AI is telling us, and we're actually still doing our work and making sure that everyone does everything great. So we're going to go over how we use it as a tool, and we're going to go over the policy that we're going to drop in place to control or put control safeguards and everything else around the use of AI. So first, we're going to just describe AI in general. We're really drilling down on one particular type of AI. AI has been out for years and years and years. Any day since the first computer was out, technically that's AI. So whenever everyone's talking about AI, it's just artificial intelligence. It's a computer-based system that analyzes data and makes intelligent choices on what to do. It's usually in the code. It goes through a whole long list of code saying if this, then that, if this, then that, until it has a match, and then it determines what to process the data that you gave it. Generic things in AI is automated tasks, things that run power plants, water plants, things like that. That's all being ran in just automated tasks. It's, hey, if it's 6 o'clock, I'm going to do this. If it's 7 o'clock, I'm going to do this. If there is a valve break or I'm getting this pressure, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Nothing really too intelligent about it. It's just how computers are designed to make things easier for us. Now, the big thing that's going out is generative AI. That's what we're talking about now, and that's what we really want to control, because that is something that people can ask a computer now in layman's terms, in everyday speak, ask a computer to give them something. So the difference between regular AI, whereas it has set data, set parameters, and is working on a set schedule. Generative AI, you're giving it parameters and asking it to give you something back. So what it's doing is tapping into its massive amounts of data that it has, learning from it, and then doing probably not just a couple comparisons, but millions and billions of comparisons to try and get the proper amount of data back to you and do it in an intelligent manner. So computers are taught this stuff. How generative AI works and their data pool it works from is they basically have dumps of the internet. The internet, search engines, Google, anything, that was all early access AI. You ask Google for a search, it goes through, matches those terms in a database, and provides you links back to what it matched. Same thing. They said, now we're going to take like an intelligent conversation, match those terms in the database, but instead of just giving you regular data back to click here and go look at it yourself, it now is going to analyze it and try and give it back to you in an intelligent manner. So, some of the catalog sites right now that it uses, I think it was up to 2019, it was all of Wikipedia that was involved. It grabbed.
I think Dan might be.
Hey, Dan, can you mute?
All right. I think it's getting feedback from.
Oh, good.
Good.
Okay, sorry. We're not even on. Okay, catalog sites such as Wikipedia, grabbed all of Wikipedia that was out there. It grabbed all the New York Times cataloged articles and others like that, which is gonna lead into some of the things that cause problems for AI, which we're gonna get into. But basically also it can generate music. If you ask it to develop a tune, it analyzes music and it can generate something and give it back to you. Images, you could tell it to draw an image of a pumpkin. It goes out to its massive database of pumpkins. It analyzes those pumpkins and tries to draw something and give it back to you that you can use in your own stuff. So it's basically, hey, I'm asking it for something. It's going to give you something. We're going to use it. Okay, so dangers of generative AI. I got to go into this first because otherwise you're not going to know why we want to put a policy in place. So, all right, so
That is a concern for sure.
That was run by AI, by the way.
No,
So, the dangers of AI, you know, if you like my little Terminator guy up there. So AI uses data that was provided to it. So it can have a lot of bias and discrimination if that's what data it was given. So it has a data set, you know, it's not intelligent, it's not a person, it's not something thinking on its own and coming up with it. It mimics that, it's meant to look that way, but that's not what it is. So anyone who feeds it data can make it biased towards whatever they feed it. So there are some privacy risks. So AI tools, I'm going to use an example of this. There was two different examples. One was from Google, one was from Samsung. Both of them use ChatGPT. They both copied proprietary source code and pasted it in ChatGPT and said, hey, does this look right? You know, and it goes through it, checks it, hey, your source code looks great, good to go. Okay, cool. So somebody was just using ChatGPT and asked, hey, you know what, I want to build a search engine. It goes, here's Google source code they gave me, because it grabs what you're saying to it and remembers it for reuse later. So they actually had proprietary information leak, and it was classified information. So the person out, you know, obviously got fired who did that because they weren't allowed to use that. But that's one of the inherent dangers of using unfiltered, and we will get into the different types later, but that's like an unfiltered freebie version that you can go out there and put out on the internet. It's always going to remember what you say, and they'll remember what the conversation it has with you to develop better conversations with someone else. So I think Keith said it best at one time, you are the product for this. You are the ones who is building this system. Misinformation. Remember, this is just on the internet. They literally went out and grabbed Wikipedia. Anyone can enter anything into Wikipedia, so you are not always going to get information, and accurate information. And people were taking that and putting it out there, and kids were using it to write papers for school, and it comes back and they didn't actually read it. They just handed in, okay, here's what it is. I had AI generate a whole paper for me because I didn't do my homework, so I'm going to turn it in, and it was literally garbage. And so definitely misinformation out there. You really have to check these things. Over-reliance on automation. So this is if you set up some automated processes, but then you have your automated process do automated process to automated processes, where it can get caught in a death loop, I like to call it. So something's happening, but that little thing that triggers the loop to stop, to give it back, to do the automation, hand the control back to you, never happens. So it just sucks up all your computer, ends up crashing everything. Then security vulnerabilities. AI is smart. You can ask it how to bypass things, and if that was put on the internet, it will give you the information how to do that. So it will help hackers hack. We used to call it back in the day when the kids would just use these scripts that were written for someone else. They were called script kiddies. They just downloaded this data, ran it. They had no idea what it did. It just, it cracked their computer and now I have access to their files. That's all they cared about, but they didn't actually understand how it did it. So, all right, some examples that we found. Some of these are recent. I didn't put everything in there, but some things have definitely happened before. So students have used AI to create fake videos. So videos of like other students, classmates, and basically trying to cause reputational damage or anything like that. Bad videos. This has been known to actually cause other kids to commit suicide. So this was used in basically cyberbullying to the next level. They've also used it to generate less than reputable images, and called sextortion. So they would say, hey, you know what, I had this generate a picture of you and I'm gonna post it out everywhere unless you either give me your lunch money or, pay me something. A lot of people are doing this now. They're sending you emails saying that they had you on your webcam and you were looking at bad things, and then they use AI. They just grab your photos from Facebook or whatever. They use AI and they try and get money from you. Chatbots, ChatGPT was one of them. They actually was known to, somebody was talking to him, was interacting with them, and it actually told the kid that, hey, if you want to die, just go kill yourself. So these things happen out there. Remember, they're not perfect. The computer doesn't know what it's putting out there. It's doing a bunch of comparisons and giving you the best data it thinks it knows. So definitely some dangers out there. And that is why we want to lead into having a nice policy around using generative AI. Generative AI is very powerful. It can make work a lot easier, but you have to know what you're giving it. So the people have to give it and take responsibility for what they're giving it and responsibility for what it gives you back. For instance, you're the one providing it everything. So if it's gonna write something, it'll rewrite your terms. It's not where you're saying, hey, generate this whole thing for me. It's, I'm having trouble with this paragraph. Here's how I wrote it. Can you rewrite it as a different tone for me? And it'll take your words and rewrite them into a different tone. And then it's your responsibility as the employee to actually look at that and say, yeah, that sounds good. That makes sense. And I'm gonna use that. So we tried to cover everything we could in the policy. So we did just a basic definition of generative AI. A lot of people just think AI is AI, but generative AI is that really specific, hey, this is your chat that's gonna generate things for you. We tried to define the language model, artificial intelligent language model. That is what is known as like Copilot or ChatGPT. Those are the interfaces. That's a language model. And what that is it has a bunch of programming in there to be able to take normal speak and try and talk back to you normally. And that's what builds. So that's the thing that's on top of this massive database that is actually going through and generating everything for you. So a couple different things with the policy. The purpose obviously is going to establish guidelines to do things responsible. We are trying to foster innovation. We're trying to allow the person, the individual, to use it to enhance themselves, use it as a tool, not as a crutch. So that's why this is really here. So we don't want someone to not have any knowledge and be pretending to have knowledge of something using this. We want them to have the knowledge and use this to elevate that knowledge to the next level to get things done quicker. The scope is we're covering all the municipal employees, official contractors, vendors, and pretty much everyone who has dealings with the municipality. So how we're gonna do that, I think we're gonna work out those details afterwards, because if we have some subcontractors come in, there's probably gonna have to be some roles laid down, as in, hey, if you're gonna use generative AI, here's what we're expecting out of it.
Well, we'll actually I would imagine, would have to write that into some of our contracts with consultants, because we are going to provide them with our data.
Yes.
We need to lay down some ground rules in terms of how that data can be used and the use of AI as it relates to that data.
Yeah, and we'll probably have to get legal involved sometime just to make sure we're all on the up and up.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we would like to do on here is really just vet the tools that are vetted for government use. So those open tools that are telling people those things and giving out New York Times, writings and everything like that, we don't want to be able to use that and get caught in any legal battles. So we're going to look at AI tools. There's a lot of AI tools that are vetted for use in government and locked down where it does not have wide open access to the internet. It is using a strict data set that has gone through, people have gone through it and made sure it was cleaned up and we don't have any of those issues. Not to say that you won't ever have an issue, but at least the due diligence was made for that. So right now we have 2 approved tools with more on the way because Keith did do a little symposium or something and they did show some government tools now.
Through LGA,
Yeah.
it's a 4-part series on basically AI in local government. It's very informative and kind of scary at the same time, quite honestly. But they've also referenced a website, it's called GovAI, which is basically approved for governments in terms of AI and has some draft policies. It has some other draft documents that you can take and you can use those and modify them to fit your needs.
So right now, we have 2 of them vetted. So Microsoft Copilot with our license, it's a paid version, so it's not the free version. Of course, Microsoft, they name the same thing across the board, even if it's 2 different products. So the Copilot that we have is built into our 365 environment. Certain things are disabled on it that are not approved by for federal government use or state and local government use. Those things are disabled. The other product we have is Adobe products. So Creative Cloud we purchased. It does have a paid version of stuff inside there that it uses to help develop imaging and things like that that are built into their systems. So those are the 2 products we have right now that are paid for and that we have in this policy. More things can be added to this policy. Right now, this is just what we had to work with. We were building on a policy that we built 2 years ago. So this was a revamp of that 2023 policy. We do specify that the free stuff really should not be used. And we named ChatGPT free, Copilot free version, DALL-E, and different public APIs shouldn't be used. Because those are still wide open and those still have security concerns and all the concerns that we're seeing. So that's what we have right now. So we're gonna put the tools in there, specifically of what you could use. We're gonna define what you can't use. And now we're gonna define the ways you can use the tools and cannot use the tools to help build those safeguards. So you can see if, and you guys all had drafts to those policies in your package as well. So you can see we have several things that you could do, automating tasks, enhancing productivity by using it to draft, memos or anything that's internal, content development, things like this. And we very specifically said that if anything is going to be used for external communications, it needs to be checked by a human before it would go out. So we're not allowing anyone just to put it in there, generate something, copy and paste it out to the internet for consumption. It basically, you could use this to start, you could use this to brainstorm, you could use this to say, hey, generate a quick memo for me. You could use this to provide your data and have it to rewrite your information in a specific tone, anything like that. That really shaves some time off of your day in doing that. But at the end of the day, you know what you're talking about and you could read it and say, that makes sense, or what the heck did this thing do? And this thing put stuff that does not make sense. That you're the final safeguard. You are the owner of this data and you're gonna take ownership for it, whenever you hand it in. So that is a good thing we'd like to do with that. So again, we're really specifying some acceptable uses. This is gonna be revised. This is gonna be a living document. If there's any major breakthrough in AI, we're gonna review those breakthroughs and see, do we update the document? Otherwise, we have the bottom document, we will get to it. I'm gonna have an annual review just to see, is there anything out there that really wasn't major or anything that we have to change in here to meet some of the new standards? So we do have some prohibited uses of this. Obviously, I feel it has to be in here, but it's an obvious thing, but, you know, sensitive data, criminal justice data, because we're dealing with police departments and everything, that all is at no point allowed to be entered in any AI system. So decision makings, we were very specific in like legal, financial, personnel matters. You don't want the AI to try and make a decision in those fields, because if it makes the wrong decision, it could cost money, it could cost, you know, legal, any kind of things out there that is just bad, all around bad. So anything generating what I would classify as cyberbullying, misleading content, bad images that are showing, you know, people deep fake stuff, that is all prohibited. Anything that shows people how to circumvent cybersecurity or any security measures we put in place, that's going to be prohibited. And then again, we are hitting that all AI generated content has to be reviewed by humans, no matter what. All the content that comes back, the human who is using it as a tool needs to review that and make sure that it makes sense. All right, so for the privacy, again, this is really hammering not the, you know, what to put in there, what not to put in there. It's basically saying that all generated content that you're putting in there asking for does have to meet all federal and local rules and jurisdictions, everything. We need to make sure that it is legal and you're not doing anything to, you know, bend that and can come back and bite us. So the cybersecurity and training, I think we're gonna have, put that together, like, you know, what not to do and things like that, where we're gonna have a general, just quick training that people can look at, go through and just sign off on to make sure that they understand what's going on. And, also, okay, yeah, so that covers the data privacy, sorry. Accountability. This is a gray area here that I was thinking, coming up with. So right now, if you're using AI in a project, I think it should be documented. So if you are generating anything, you should do the best effort to log what you did in AI and what information it generated. So for instance, if you are working on a project, you have a folder, you know, with all your data in there, you should have a log in there that you say, okay, I used AI to generate this image, I used AI to do this, just in case it ever comes back, any legal questions come back, we have that as a log and you have that to go back to. So definitely though, if people violate the policy, we need to enforce it. Not, you know, just smack on the hands or look the other way, or we only, you know, enforce it when we want to. I think it needs really enforced and hammered home if people do that every single time, just so they get the idea like, hey, this is serious. And we, you know, there are definitely consequences if I choose to use it for means that's not meant to be used for. This is just a little bit of review, what I was saying about before. Annually, we're going to review the policy for changes, new softwares, different things, any type of new stuff going out there. If there's any major revelations in generative AI, that'll trigger a policy review at that time. And basically, we'll update it as we need to, just to make sure that our people are using the best of the best out there and the safeguards remain intact. Technology changes every day, every hour. You know, it's like insane how quick it changes. So we really need to be on top of that with safeguards, because if we let something slip, so it's like, oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that. Oh, it just kind of brought down the whole network, you know, and it's happened. It has happened. So yeah, just to give you guys another example of the AI and why the safeguards are so important. ChatGPT was just hacked. It was hacked earlier this week. Microsoft identified a virus that was using it. It was being used to control botnet. So there was a chat that everyone was able to get to, and the hackers literally were just using the AI to control their bots. So it's insane because how powerful it is. that just amplified everything. I literally, as I was sitting downstairs, just put that in because one of my security emails came up from the National Institute, and I'd seen that in there. I was like, hey, well, that'd be a good little topic to touch with whenever we want to review the policies and see what's new and what's not, and, those safeguards. All right, so for that, I'm gonna go real quick on some future AI ideas I might have here for the municipality, and then I'll open up for questions. So one big future AI I see other places doing, and I would like to look at is a virtual assistant. So we have now, you call the municipality, they ask a question, you get routed to 15 different people to get your answer. Because it might be this department, that department, it might be this person in that department. Right now, we could feed the AI our data. So the bot would actually just use our data. So for instance, if we gave the bot our budget, and the bot has our budget, that's all it has to go with, and a person goes on there and asks a question about our budget, the answer is only gonna come from the tables in the budget. If we have our code book in there, you could ask, hey, how deep do I have to dig a footer? And it would go through our local code book and be able to give you that intelligent answer. Now, of course, there's always gonna have to be something that AI is never 100%, but if we do not open it up to just generic terms, we keep it tied down to our data set, it could intelligently process our data set and be able to work with somebody and interact with somebody. Several states are doing this, several cities are doing this. Mississippi already has a bot, Texas has a bot. I would like to look into it for us and see, what it would take, make sure it's not some huge insane cost to build that, but the data's there, we have the data's digital. If we could feed that in and have a relatively low cost virtual assistant, it would not only be a chatbot for the website, it could be, a specific portal. We could do a web portal with a chatbot and things like that. So those are my ideas for the future. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot more, but that's kind of like the low-hanging fruit there that I was thinking. Any other questions or anything you guys want to discuss?
I have a bunch.
Go for it.
Go?
You go first.
So normally I bring my computer or my iPad, but I didn't today, so I'm not playing on Facebook here. I'm just going through my questions and my notes, in case anyone's wondering. Although I did laugh at a text that Jeff sent me, which was funny. So I like
You and me?
I like the generative AI stuff you mentioned related to staff usage. I suspect that most, if not all of the staff is already using, generative AI or just the LLMs in their daily work. If they're not, they should be.
Actually, we actually blocked it.
Really?
Yeah, we said that it is not allowed. That's the 2023 policy was really locked down because that is when at the height of ChatGPT was in its legal battles and everything was going on. It was telling people all kinds of bad information. So, and again, if you would, from the police side, the state literally said, no, you're not touching AI at all because there's legal battles there too. So yeah, just as a safety measure, it really was locked down here.
Yeah.
Copilot has since been released in the government platform, so it's in our government web, and we allow use in that, but not a lot of people are doing that.
Yeah, they should. I think it's great. I appreciate the coverage on contractors and consultants, I think, because we do share data. Like when we had contractors come in, work on our website, obviously most of that is public information, but we do have a lot of sensitive data that could potentially be shared. When I think of like the comprehensive plan, our contractors that worked with us, Pashik, did a lot of surveys, they did a lot of meetings with the public, that information gets entered in different ways. So I think that's good that we're thinking about that and trying to put policies in place. The last two things that you mentioned were the top two on my list moving forward. So chatbots have been around forever. The ability to connect them to data and use reasoning is what's important now, right? So the code book was like an obvious one in my mind, because it's very confusing right now and we don't make it easy for people. So, the example you gave, like how big do I need to dig my footer? Actually, I think that's a good one. I also think there are other kind of reasoning questions because our code book and code in general is very logical, how it steps through. I think it'd actually be easier than most people would imagine to kind of automate that without giving incorrect data. The other area I go with that is, which permits do I need, right? And that probably saves several phone calls and saves our staff some time. So the questions that I had and the stuff that I hope we think about are things that are more in line, less about how do we use or, come up with some of the generative stuff or the LLMs, and more how do we use, I'll say automation, but I don't mean like a workflow, do this, do that. But here's a couple more examples. Permits you mentioned, things like that. Predictive analysis of maintenance, right? Like, how do we enter data of our fleet? And how do we use AI models to analyze when does our fleet need maintenance? How do we predict that? How do we better cost that? Are there, rather than waiting for a piece of equipment to reach its end of useful life, are there ways that we can predict when that's going to happen, or are there ways that we can predict better maintenance? That's one. Optimizing snowplow routes, right? Like, maybe there's a way for AI to analyze how we do that, and can that make it better? I know, Dan, we've chatted about this before, the programs we use for roads. I know that the programs that we use go into it, and there's not always a visual inspection on stuff. It's making assumptions about types of roads and, is it a collector road? Is it a local road? How much traffic does it get? Where is the intersection between having eyes on property, which we do, and using software like that is going to analyze OCI and tell us maybe there's a way for us to optimize how we handle road programs? That was another one. Energy consumption at our buildings. How do we plug in energy consumption of our public assets into AI analysis and have it spit back if there's different ways that we can run things? Those were just a couple things that I kind of put less on the generative and less on, how do we create images for social media, which I think Laura and her team could certainly do. Less on how do we create memos quicker, and more like, how do we use the computing power and knowledge of Carnegie Mellon, which are, cranking out every day. There's another AI business that gets started by people coming out of Pitt and Carnegie Mellon. And how do we harness that to be an asset to how we run the municipality, even on the back end of stuff? So that's the kind of stuff that I'd like to, hopefully we can think about infusing in different areas of the way we work for an efficiency's sake. And I don't mean that like, let's do all these automations so we can get rid of people. I think the idea is, how do we make the work that we do more efficient? How do we pass that on to residents? And how do we make their lives more efficient in interacting with their government? Those are topics that I hope we can cover in the AI discussion.
So real quick, I just wanted to say that, yeah, we do have softwares that we use now that do use internal AI, such as like our finance software, that when we drop our invoices in there, it grabs everything and sort of self-catalogs it, does all that stuff. Rudy, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to talk out of turn, but you are doing a pilot program of a system that's coming in that will analyze your snow routes, right? It's somewhere like that.
It doesn't analyze it, but it's mapping them. Yeah,
Okay.
and it keeps track of what's done and what needs to be done.
Okay.
And overlaps the 9 different routes at the same time.
So we'll look if there's an AI component to that too, to
Yeah.
actually do what you asked.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of new software is coming out that can be integrated into everything, not just, generative AI.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea.
I'm sure it's going to touch every department. I think from a framework standpoint, we should have something, and it doesn't have to be a rigid policy, I don't think. I mean, it's good to have a policy on the legal side, for sure. But I think, and for some HR stuff, I'm sure we'd want things like that too. But there's got to be some framework whereby directors or staff members can, hey, it would be great if we can analyze this kind of operation. And maybe there's an AI model out there that helps us do that. And that framework would help us understand, how do we integrate, how do we, check if it's a good piece of software? Or is it something that doesn't have a good reputation or is had problems in the past. How do we operate it? How much is it gonna cost? There should be a standard kind of set of things that we look at. Does it go to the manager for approval? Does it have to go to the commission? Is it just internal? Things like that are kind of like what I'm hoping we can get to.
I was thinking of putting together a group of department heads who are like using more technologically, based software users and actually doing that every so many months, getting together and saying, hey, where are we at? What are we doing? Can anything be done better?
Yeah.
And everyone brings something different to the table. And then we can do that. We can analyze that. So that might be, a good internal group that
Yeah.
talks about AI and different things that, automations, things, hey, this would be better if we could do X, and then we could, okay, I never thought of that because I didn't know you did that. And then we could go and look at things to be able to integrate.
So, some of you have heard me say this before, so bear with me for a minute. I always go back to when my father was a city manager, and he encouraged his council to help employees buy computers. This was in the 90s, so when PCs were the thing. And his argument was, look, and ostensibly, the employees were gonna go buy a computer for their child because it was good for doing homework and whatever it was. But the reality was that they were gonna go home and figure out how to do their job better, right? And be more productive. And I think there's a truth to that. And while AI is different, I think we don't know what AI is going to do, right? We don't know how it's gonna be applied. And there will be a lot of employees who will take absolutely no interest whatsoever, and that's fine, right? It's not a requirement that you use AI. But we have a new generation of people coming into local government who are inclined, who do want to try things, who do want to explore, who want to push boundaries, and that's important. So for me, as I think about, right, how do you encourage innovation? How do you encourage dynamic thinking? Things that, again, as I've gotten older, I appreciate, I don't adapt as quickly as I used to. I was always an early adopter, now I'm not. I'm slower to it. But I know younger employees are going to be like, oh, I could do that. And so for me, from a policy perspective, the question isn't yes or no. The question is how? And when do we need guardrails? And how do we make sure that employees feel safe doing things, right? That they are allowed to, but we as an organization know where the boundaries are. And our residents understand how AI is being used, right? Because they are us, right? And this is our community. So how do we think of a policy that's not so much, this tool or that tool? That's a decision that I think needs to be made. But it needs to be made within a framework of, here is how we think about, these capabilities as an organization, as we move forward. Because again, it's, to your point, it changes all the time. So how do we understand, because I don't want staff to have to come back to commission every time. Nor do I want staff to have to go to the manager every time they want to try to play with some model to test something out. But when there is something, they're like, there's this really cool idea, but it might be on the edge. Where do those conversations happen, right? When should those things happen, right? How do we make sure that we are being clear in terms of where the bounds are, so that people can feel safe if they are inclined? Because I think that's really important, especially in local government, especially in this region where we don't have enough employees. We don't have the next generation coming in fast enough. And so those people that are going to come in and want to do the work of government are going to need to have every tool that they can have. So how do we make sure that we're creating that space for them? So for me, that's where I'm thinking about the policy, is not so much creating hard rules, but creating a framework that is encouraging and supporting.
Yeah, something that Keith had mentioned last week that I think is really, that I appreciated hearing is that currently staff do not communicate with the public using AI tools. And I think that is appreciated. And I like the idea, the bot's certainly a nice idea, but I appreciate the idea that the public would always know whether they're speaking with a human or not, and that's important policy to keep, and I think that matters for trust. So I'm glad that is our current policy.
Yeah, I know there's a lot in the news, like every day there's another comment about a job that AI will likely replace, and, Bill Gates was on talking about, it was like, I think he was on Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Fallon was like, will AI replace me? And he's like, probably. So, but the way I look at it is not that it'll replace people, but it will assist them in doing their work more efficiently. And there are things that I think AI models can help staff on, things like generative, right? And then there's the back end stuff that lets us do more powerful things than maybe we've been able to do before, because those opportunities weren't there from a modeling standpoint. And I think those would be good to have the ability to, like you're saying, Andrew wants to crunch numbers and, go back 50 years of numbers and analyze things. He might not need to do that, but if he wanted to, maybe there's something that we can glean from that. And, to have the ability to say, hey, there's this piece of software out there that gives me the ability to do that, and it might give us some information we could use, whether it's roads. I mean, when we looked at parking, we looked at hundreds of thousands of pieces of data, and if we had, that could probably be crunched by ChatGPT in 10 minutes now.
Right, well, and that's exactly it. When I think so a couple interesting things. One, Chief Haberman and I had some good conversations on this topic because some of his officers have gone to conferences talking about AI in policing, right? So it's clearly there's a different set of rules in place, right, with that data. But that doesn't mean that we don't want to encourage, right, AI's use. We just need to understand what the rules are.
Yeah.
And how they are being utilized. But we should have a policy as a governing body that says, to at least to a certain extent, we want to make sure that AI is not being used, to discriminate, to, whatever it might be, right? I don't know that I have an answer for what that framework is that a commission would want, but I do think it's worth that discussion. And that's on one side. Then on the other side, right, again, a lot of your points, Commissioner Grella, are about services that Gateway provides to us. So what data are we allowing Gateway to utilize? Because honestly, that's I think a legitimate question. And I love Gateway. They're doing fantastic work for us, but I don't know that us giving all of our data and all the work that they do on our behalf so that they can build their own language model is a benefit to the municipality. Sorry, Dan. I don't mean to.
No, we're just generating data. I mean, every time there's a project, there's data generated.
Well, right. And so the question is that our data? And do I want Gateway using it? Or any other firm? Right.
No, I mean, I've always taken the aspect that it's your data. Yeah, of course it's your data.
Right, well, and I think that needs to be, clear, right?
Clear,
That, again,
Especially with like GIS, I mean, we're building so much data in GIS right now. It's where we have, where everything is, and it's shared, it's in the cloud. I mean, residents are sharing data, right? I mean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right, but so that's again, it's those kind of use cases where, again, if it was an internal engineering department, go forth and innovate. It's our data, it's sitting in-house, it's not going anywhere, do what you will. And so I'll be generic. Now another service provider comes in that is data heavy, and they're like, yeah, we'll do all this work, we're gonna learn, now we're gonna go stand up a tool that we're going to sell to municipalities that's been taught on our municipalities' efforts. That's an interesting question as to how do we understand that from a policy perspective, right? Should those service providers be allowed to do that? Or do we have a clear policy that states that, you know, any data that you utilize on behalf of the municipality cannot be used in your commercial purposes?
I know we're running a bit over time, but one last quick question. What sort of complications or problems, what should we be aware of? What are you expecting for us to be faced with coming down the road?
Really what I'm expecting is a lot less people are gonna use it than we hope. I'm gonna expect that we should, IT internal, put together samples, different things you can do, and try and look at every department and say, hey, you can maybe do this here or do this here, and then get more people to adopt it and sort of flourish with it. Legal challenges is the only thing that I would be worried about, that if these aren't followed, if we did put that in there where they're not allowed to put it out there, it has to be reviewed by people. I don't think you're really gonna have much in that. But you do wanna make sure that you're getting legitimate data from people, and we may run into one or two people that just use it as a crutch and they're faking it till they make it, you know? So they're putting it out there and they really don't know what's going on. But
Maybe try to, department heads put together goals every year. And, there may be ways to look at those, and if they're resident focused and focused on delivering a service and not just like, how do I do X, tasks of my job, I think we can look at those and say, how can we wrap AI into this work? Like if our goal is, I'm just making this up at the top of my head, but like if a goal for our public information officer might be increase readership of, the municipal website from 50% to 100% of residents. How can we use AI to facilitate that? Maybe the answer is we can't, but maybe the answer is there's something out there that we can do. Then that gets into the conversation of what's it gonna cost, what does it look like, what kind of data we did, and then we take it from there. I think if we focus it on the service delivery, how residents are gonna use it, how value is driven to the residents, and then we back into, is there AI that can help us do that? That might be a good way to tackle it.
Yeah, I just go back to, if we tried to figure out what the use case is, it's wrong, right?
Right.
It really is. So for me, it's a question of how do I just make sure that the boundaries are defined? Because, yeah, no one's gonna use it that much at first, but in 5 years, you're gonna have a whole new group of new employees who are like, oh, I've got a whole set of ideas and I'm just gonna go run with them. Great.
We do need to move to the other, but just to sort of wrap this up a little bit, I think we need to be open and transparent with the public on how we're using it. I think in terms of who's going to use it, it's gonna come down a little bit to training, right? When we first got GIS here, I had to fight with people to use GIS, right? Because they didn't see the utility to them. Once you can show an employee the value in either a time savings or some other aspect of something they're doing anyway, they will start to use it. We used to have to generate mailing labels for zoning hearing board notifications. That was a 2.5-hour process, right? Because somebody had to look at a map, figure out what the address was. Well, now with GIS, you just create a buffer. It will automatically put that into a mail merge and it spits those labels out in 5 minutes, right? Well, that's better than 2.5 hours. So people started to use it. Again, once they started to see the utility, Rudy really embraced GIS and he's got data in there now. So if a resident calls and says, hey, when's the last time, my sanitary sewer was lined, he can tell you, not only when was the last time it was lined, but any other maintenance that we've done to it over the period of time for which we've inputted the data. So, again, the other area where I can see this potentially getting to, and Phil may weigh in at some point, but it doesn't have to be tonight, right to know requests, we will probably see right to know requests that will specifically request when was AI utilized for whatever the information is they're looking for. So we need to have a good
that goes away
data
putting a policy
yeah.
with, if you're gonna use it, you should log it.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of this will be litigated and will affect how we are required
Absolutely.
to report and disclose.
Track it
And,
and-
that's just gonna happen
Retain.
over time,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, great.
Thank you. Thank you. Going back to my dungeon to run the meeting. So.
All right. Don't you have AI to do that?
Yeah.
Upcoming projects and contracts to be bid.
Yeah, and this is Gateway. I actually asked Ann to sort of, and you can run through these. You don't have to spend a lot of time. This will be mainly review for the three of you that are in the room and for Ann to a certain extent. But we do have two new commission-elects that I thought this would be a valuable sort of piece of information for them.
Okay, this is just an overview of the annual contracts. We call it 2026 annual contracts because we also already have in mind where we're headed for next year, because there's a lot of things that we do in a repetitive fashion. The things that we're going to talk about, storm and sanitary O&M, consent order projects, community development block grant, the handicap ramps that we do, filtration project, and then talk about the roadway maintenance and some of the other routine maintenance projects that are done. So starting off, we know that Alcosan requires us to do maintenance on our system, 150 miles of sanitary sewer. So there's operation and maintenance required each year. So the reason why we do O&M contracts, and we try to do them in a repetitive fashion, is that that a lot of these contracts aren't heavily dependent upon material costs, which can fluctuate. Contractors get familiarity with the municipality. They can continue to move pretty quickly. They know how to deal with residents and those sorts of things. So that's why we do the repetitive contracts. As I said, each year, 10% of our sanitary sewers, that's about 15 miles, and then about 20% of the root treated sewers, or sewers that we know that have root issues, are treated. So our current contract related to televising, the original contract was bid in 25. We have renewals coming up in 26 and 27. Current contractor is Robinson. Their second renewal period is coming up at a value of about $400,000. And we anticipate bringing that back in to the commission to just go ahead and award the second year of that bid. We've had good success with them. The second contract that we look at is the blanket contract. This is a contract that was bid in 25, renewal 26, 27. The current contractor is Neando. The opinion cost for 26 is a little over $1 million. I should say that we never use that full amount. That $1 million represents bidding everything from A to Z that can be done in a sanitary sewer system. So we have unit prices available when the contractor is assigned a work order or a task to take care of. So we anticipate, again, making a recommendation on Neando. They do a good job, and that would be on the docket for 26 to approve.
Dan, I know it's on the slide, but these are for point repairs,
Correct.
defects that are identified, raising manholes, those types of issues.
Yeah, this would be storm and sanitary sewers.
Correct.
We always run into some issue where there's a surprise, right?
For sure.
Chemical root treatment, this is another thing that's we've had good success with. We treat the sewers with herbicide. The first application is done, and then it's treated another 2 years afterwards. The original contract was bid in 23. We had 3 renewals on top of this one. Successful contractors, Duke's Root Control, we're going to be recommending the 3rd renewal on this one in early 26. Manhole rehabilitation, this is a part of consent order and of our maintenance of the system. We go in and rebuild the manholes with the cementation coating. This is a brick manhole. This is a coated manhole. The current contract was bid in 24. Renewal, 2 more renewals left. And the contractors, Robinson Pipe, would be looking to make their second renewal on their contract of about $500,000 in 2027. All of these awards are using the sanitary sewer fund to on any of the sanitary sewer items. The backwater valve maintenance contract, we have a number of backwater valves. How many do we have?
About 80,
Yeah.
80, 85, something like that.
So we don't need them all anymore, but we still have them in just as a safeguard because of all the work that's being done in the system. We hope at some point to remove them. But yet again, we take care of them. Each year we have them inspected and make sure they're operable. The contractor that does that is Roto-Rooter. That this was bid in '24 with, again, 3 renewal periods. We're recommending the second one, about $17,000 in early '26. Annual lining contract. This is where we go in and do lining from manhole to manhole in various locations after we've TV'd it and determined that it's worthy of lining so that we don't have to worry about it. We essentially have a new sewer. I think we're up to about 40% of the system is now lined, and we continue to make progress with that, with the big consent order projects. This is bid on a yearly basis because there are a number of contractors out there. We can sort of define this very succinctly, and we get good numbers every year related to it. So we will be bidding this. We have a schedule right now that will be have us awarding sometime in 2026. Consent order work, we've talked about this already. We've done a couple projects. The first one's complete. It was done by In Situ Form. JetJack is currently doing the second one, and we're doing the Grow Grant work related to that. We'll just be monitoring the works that's been done next year so that we know I'll close out these contracts and be waiting for the next consent order. Corrective action repairs, this is the one that we did with, like I said, with JetJack, the second one that's going to close out. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Beck Snyder, we've already talked about it. This is again a consent order project, all done through grant funding, both a Grow Grant and a small solar and water project. This should be wrapped up here at the this should be wrapped up before the end of the year also. Quickly touching on community development block grants, this is one of the few places where we get any money from the federal government related to items that we can take care of. We do handicap ramps each year. We have a number of them in the pipeline right now due to Shake Hog situation and the money coming from the federal government. We have the 2024 and the 2025 contracts in backlog. With soon to be a 2026 program, so you're going to need to see a lot of ramps being done in the next year. Is there any questions on that? And then we move on to the pool filtration project, which the Commission's aware of. That was awarded. It's under construction. We anticipate that to be completed in time for the opening of the pool, or else. We are having bi-weekly construction meetings and making sure our contractor is on task. Trying to keep David from having a nervous breakdown. Roadway maintenance projects, very quickly on that one, street maintenance program, mill and overlay, road reconstruction. This is one where we actually use data. AI is soon to venture into this. Some of the more advanced AI models I've seen can do road inspections. It's unbelievable how you can go with a camera down a road now. It's a repetitive model, and they can actually quantify all different types of defects in the roads. As engineers, we think that's very valuable because we can get very quickly get a new OCI almost on a yearly basis. I think that's going to become cheaper, better, stronger, faster, and that's something that, it will cut out a step of the human step of it, but I think it's going to be much more valuable. It also helps us manage our funds better. As we do less in road reconstruction, we need to be doing more maintenance. There's a lot of more innovative maintenance programs out there, some micro resurfacing, some seal. We do also already do a number of them here, but there are some more advanced things that I'd like to see us get into in the future. And again, I think AI is going to help us on that end. AI will also help on the sewers. The repetitive task of reviewing sanitary sewer tapes, I know everybody would love to watch videos of sanitary sewers, but that's something the computer does very well. Doesn't complain. All right, Rudy, you want to talk about your projects? Or you wanna talk
Sure, and
about these?
I'll throw a couple things out there
Yeah,
too.
sorry.
No, that's okay. I know we're kind of rushed here. You know, that, the AI stuff too will be more objective. You don't have a human making different decisions or comparisons of streets, so the objectivity will be much higher with a computer generated program. We've already looked at those types of software programs. Basically, you put an iPhone in the windshield, you drive around, and it's collecting data the whole time you're driving around. So whether our guys are out, you know, doing work or snow plowing and things like that, you can actually analyze the streets and it's cheaper, and you can do it more frequently. So, and then the other thing too about these contracts, I'd like to say that these are a result of probably 25 or 30 years worth of work. We look at these every time we go back out to bid. We make notes as we go from one contract year to the next to modify these, add things in so that we can improve the contracts and the services and do them more cheaply or less costly, I should say, not cheaply. So that we're being effective with the dollars that we're spending. So this is a constant update. The one that Dan had at the beginning of the slides, we were talking about we're only mandated by the consent order to inspect and clean the sewers once every 10 years. We found though that we were getting roots that were blocking the sewers. So those that we had with the roots in them, we go back every 5 years now because 10 years is just too long. So those are just some of the modifications that we've made to the contracts over the years to be more efficient and to produce a better product as well. These projects here, these are crack sealing, brick streets, roadway rejuvenator. We talked about some of these, the curb replacement program for sections of damaged curb, sidewalk root damage replacement, and the assessment program. We talked about these the other night when we had our budget review. These are all annual maintenance contracts where we're maintaining streets, sidewalks, curbs, all the infrastructure that we take care of through Public Works.
That's about it. Just to summarize it, we obviously need these annual maintenance programs to keep up the infrastructure. When we do this yearly planning and so forth, that sets the stage for successful projects and getting them out early is important. And the renewals are also, I think, an advantage. It saves on costs and it just continues the work that contractors do and you get a lot more done, I think.
Can you back up to the slide where you have the overflow?
Oh,
Maybe.
you like that one,
Slides
huh?
back.
That was at Scott Township, by the way.
Just to be clear.
You're digging on our neighbors.
This one right there.
Better than us.
I think we have done a really good job of being very proactive about storm and sanitary. Road maintenance certainly, but storm and sanitary for sure. I know a lot of it was forced on us, on the entire, region. But I think the work that Gateway has recommended that we do and all the work that we've done over, the last couple of years has been very proactive. That work is often kind of out of sight, out of mind, because that's where the pipes are. But, these things have real consequences. I know we had a blocked storm sewer that caused, when we had a lot of rain, it caused backups that cut a river in a resident's property and, killed their entire yard. Like huge problems when these things happen that cause, thankfully, I don't think we've had loss of life with any flooding. I know we've had some, we've had rescues. Yeah, we've had a lot of.
Rescues.
Yeah, we've had rescues in flash floods. But there have been a lot of property damage, and I think we've done a really good job. I think our staff has done an amazing job at getting grant money offsets on a lot of this. I mean, we're talking about millions of dollars that, I know we announce it and we talk about it, and it shows up as a line item in our budget. Probably not next to all the items where we've gotten grant money, but Dan's team and Rudy's team and Andrew's team and Greg, I know, is going after, Fire's going after money. I mean, just about every department we have has brought back millions of dollars of grant money that have gone to work on these projects that make our residents' lives better, even if they don't know it.
Right.
these are important, and these are big budget items, but it's important. I appreciate the work you all do on this.
Yes, the fact that people are very little aware of it means that we're doing it.
That's right.
When you don't hear from them, that's the best thing.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't need people
The
calling
way,
about
the
so
way
much.
the way I've heard it the most is in the fire department, hearing stories about how often interior flood calls happened in the past versus now. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it clearly has made a difference.
Oh, yeah, I can remember when Rudy and I first came on to doing this, I mean, it was a fire
Oh,
drill.
yeah, a lot of SOAR calls,
Yeah.
primarily roots and, some of the techniques that we use now between lining and chemical root control to extend the effective time that we have to treat the source. It's really been abundant. Most of the calls that we get are usually laterals that are blocked, and we just go out and verify that it's not the main line, so
Yeah.
vast majority.
I get calls, not every month, but a lot of calls from commissioners and city council people in other cities, even other states. I've gotten calls from people who found our stormwater material online, even old engineering reports that we had back from 2011.
2011 was the first year, we were the second
Yeah.
implementer in the state.
Yeah, and I know for a while, I don't know if it's up there now, but for a while, we had Gateway did a report about, the statistics behind it, and I've had people call me from places, just introduce themselves, I'm a city council person here, tell us how you did your stormwater fee, or, we want to implement something like that here, how does that work? And that fee, I know sometimes people argue, hey, it's another fee, it's a junk tax, or whatever it is that they argue.
It's a rain tax.
It's provided a lot of money that would be impossible for us just to show up and say, well, we need $5 million to fix a line, now, you double your tax rate or something crazy. But that fee, that small fee every year has provided the resources for our municipality to be where we are now.
Wait till we get our next MPDS permit, you're gonna be happy to have that fee. It's gonna we'll be treating stormwater at some point in time pretty succinctly.
Here,
I think all over, our urbanized areas are gonna be more inclined, I mean, just the way that I see the permits going for new development, it's so complicated now, it's only gonna get that much more. We're hearing more that they may be trying to control volume, and I don't, how could we control volume? And we don't have any land to build ponds or things like that, so. I think you can only do it from a property standpoint. I think all the work that inspection does, now that we get stormwater controls on every project that people do, that they're not increasing runoff. I was in a property last week where they put in 3 rain gardens just because they wanted to put them in. They're very beneficial in an area there were no stormwater controls.
Yeah.
So people are starting to understand it too, so it's good.
thank you. Andrew McCreary, always coming in to pick up some time, get us back on track.
So I do.
Info from the first 2 budget workshops. Commissioners requested some info, some questions, et cetera, et
Since we
cetera.
have limited time, I'll go over this briefly. The paper really wasn't for you guys, it was for somebody who's at a concert or name nameless.
And we can send this to you tomorrow.
All right, so just to recap for those that haven't tuned in yet to our budget workshops, we had a budget workshop on November 6th and yesterday, November 10th. As we roll through the various departments and various parts of the budget, the commission outlines certain amendments they would like to revisit as they go through the budget process. So this is a list so far of those items for everybody to see. They've mentioned it, this will be discussed tomorrow night in our final workshop on November 12th. So here are all the projects they've talked about. Those that are highlighted on the screen here in the room, it looks yellow, but it's actually orange. I don't know why it's showing that way, but these are scalable, so they can be any amount that the commission deems they would like to put towards these projects, including the sidewalk improvement program. That's the minimum for the next phase, but they could always increase that as well. So here are all those projects. I won't read them. We've gone through these as well. So the commission had these as we've gone through. In addition, staff has been working diligently to get us what are called the carryovers. So these are things that are happening in the 25 budget that aren't going to be completed. So there's a listing of all those that are gonna be carried over to the 26 budget. We've mentioned this a couple times during our budget workshops, is why are there budget variances? It's because something was carried over or from a prior year or just hasn't been spent yet. So these are some of those items here. I'll scroll through them slowly. We will discuss these as well tomorrow night. We'll go through these in detail tomorrow night's workshop session. So those will be part of the completion of the budget process. So we have some time between our last workshop and the budget being passed on December 9th. So we don't foresee a lot of things changing, but they could change where the carryovers, if something comes in the next 20 days and we don't need to carry it over, we may have at that time a revision to this list. But staff has worked really hard the last 3 to 4 days because this is a short time frame of buttoning all this up. So we have all these projects here that will be discussed tomorrow night. So these are operating in nature, and then we have the capital portion as well. The paper that's in front of you, do not pay attention to the numbers. They got flubbed on this left-hand side, so I apologize for moving things around. So these will be discussed, like I said, tomorrow night. The one big thing we wanted to talk about tonight was the fund balance composition. This is something that was talked about last night when we were talking about capitals. How are we going to fund capital, and how are we going to fund potentially putting a allocation of the fund balance for a fire truck that's going to be needed to be purchased in 2028, but being to be ordered in 2026. So I put this together every year for the financial statements. This is part of the presentation that I put together for the commission in March. So this shouldn't be new to anybody sitting here at the front of the room, maybe new to the newly elected officials, but you will see this every year, at least twice a year. It's something that we routinely look at and make sure that we're comfortable with. So here you have the beginning fund balance from year-end 2024. You have my projected net revenue and expense in the general fund with a total ending fund balance of 10.7 million. We have some certain items that are non-spendable. These are prepaid insurance and prepaids. Generally is at 750,000, or things that we prepay that are actually for the next year. We have assignments already done. Assignments for turf replacement, we've talked about that. That's related to the Clint Seymour and Middlefield turf replacement. And the projected carryover, so that's linked to the other worksheet that we just were going over. So we've always had a benefit obligation in our fund balance as well, but leaving an unassigned fund balance of 8.1 million. But how does that relate? So our fund balance policy is between 12 and 15% of unassigned fund balance should be in relation to expenditures. So right now, my projection is showing 18.4% at year-end 2025. So we're in a pretty good position. So as we discuss tomorrow night, we'll be able to put the percentages in and fund with fund balance as we go and see how it impacts fund balance.
Just
and our
very quickly,
projected
Andrew,
unassigned fund balance.
explain for the public why we keep that level, the different things that triggers for us, bonds, ratings, things like that.
Correct. Okay, good thing to explain. So we have a fund balance policy that for a couple reasons, not just for a bond rating, but in general, 2 months worth of expenditures is a good fund balance to have in a fully developed community.
It's kind of like the
So-
idea of like saving, you should have a certain amount in savings, that kind of stuff.
Right. There are communities, and this has happened before, where a road literally falls off or a sinkhole happens and you need $1 million. It's something that we pride ourselves that we would have that availability if needed on demand for our community to make sure our residents are safe and our streets are safe and those types of things. So those types of things that can happen, and so those are a good tool to have. Bond rating wise, it is good to have and stick to your policy. Our policy has been between 12 and 15%. We've routinely exceeded that. In our 2025 bond issue with the bond rating agency, we pointed to that, that we've had a healthy fund balance for our policy. We feel that their rating of 30% plus is not what we're going for. That is not our policy. It hasn't served us to do that. So we leave it where we are, but we can point to that we've stuck to our policy and we adhere to that, and they find that favorable. So that's another good side. It also gives us some boundaries in which the commission can say, okay, I know that if something does come up, we have operational capacity to get things done. So that is always a good thing to have, and we routinely look at it as we progress through the year. As we see tonight at the regular meeting for the budget amendment for 2025, some of that is knowing that we had some unassigned fund balance if we needed it, right? We've had some increase in EIT revenues and those types of things, so we'll be able to cover, and I think our fund balance, as I've shown, will actually increase next year. But it is a good thing to have in our back pocket as we move forward for those reasons. So that's where we're at for tomorrow night's session. So I know we have 5 minutes left of the meeting, so I don't want to belabor it. Is there any other questions you would like to get out tonight? Could have gone into other stuff, but.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Just as a quick explanation for people, some of these, there are a lot of items on here, both revenue and expenditure carryovers. I get asked questions like, wasn't that in the budget last year? Like, how come we didn't do it? There are a lot of reasons why we wouldn't do things. We put stuff out for bid and we don't get bid responses, or we get bid responses that are more than we thought they were gonna be, so we go back out to bid. Sometimes things take, I don't know, what's our steel pole lead
Well,
time?
I would say lead
18
time
months,
for
you know.
certain things that need to be ordered. We
Yeah.
have projects that truly are multi-year projects, so they may begin in a certain budget year, but really not, we may not have anything paid out in that budget year they were approved, and then it's paid out when it's completed the following year, so it,
Yeah, so there's a lot of movement in this. We create a budget, you know, we listen to residents and we try to put priorities in place of what we need to work on. And then, you know, other times we work with utilities and we do things on different schedules. So that's part of the reason why you see so many items here that, you know, I don't know how many thousands of line items we have in our budget. So this really isn't a lot, but one might look at this and go like, wow, there's 30 things that we didn't do that we said we would. That's the reason.
1,823, just kidding.
I know there's at least
Yeah.
1,600.
But I will also chime in to say, there's also commission priorities that have been identified. We could always let a project lapse if we didn't spend all the money, right? The ones that flow to a carryover list are those that we know that we've heard from the commission or the manager that are priorities, right? So we talked about holiday decorations last night, right? That's a priority to the commission to go along with the streetscape, right? To make sure that those types of things are being, and they have the availability that we have a budget for if we need more holiday decorations, if something breaks or there's something new, that Eric has that flexibility to make sure that we have the best looking uptown that we can, and those types of things.
and we will, again, to Andrew's point, as commission priorities sort of shift or as needs shift. For example, there's still a very small amount of money remaining in there for glass recycling. When glass came out of a prior contract as a recyclable, we partnered with PRC and a few other communities to offer drop-off points so our residents could continue to recycle glass. Well, it's back in our contract now, so, you know, we may choose to reallocate those funds to something else.
That's a good example.
But we're still contributing towards that project, for instance. So once that money runs out, we're still getting billed by Dormont with the 4 communities that get billed for it. Once that money runs out, we'll reappropriate in the current budget, but we don't need to do that right now because we had that allocation for prior years. Various things. Okay, that's all I got.
Thank you much. Yeah, 3 minutes, I mean, we want to head into the other room, we'll do, I know everyone has amazing board updates. They'll post them online, we'll do the next meeting. And we'll see you in the other room.